This is Back Roads of Illinois server to farmers and ranchers in central Illinois and the Midwest. I am Cesar Delgado on today. The cattle convention was in Nashville for last week where the cattle markets is getting ramped up again for this time around from last year, but the grains markets are challenging for right now. Otherwise, ranchers is happy with the corn markets for feeds. He is joining us as Scott Varkeilk from koomia evlk Trading. This is Back Roads of Illinois server to farmers and ranchers in central Illinois and the Midwest. The cattle convention was in Nashville for last week where the cattle markets is getting ramped up again for this time around from last year, but the grains markets are challenging for right now. Otherwise, ranchers is happy with the corn markets for feeds. He is joining us as Scott Varkeilk from koomia evlk Trading. Hi Scott, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Caesar. Yeah, it's feeling good, feeling like spring. I think a little earlier than what we normally would think, but kind of puts that extra hitch in your step. You're starting to feel pretty good.
I know. Scott, let's start with our conversation about this cattle markets for right now with these high prices again. What is your thoughts with today's cattle markets?
Yeah, high prices is right. I mean, that's what we've been used to for this long extended period of time, and it feels good. I mean, we've got a lot to like about it, and there are some things that maybe we're a little bit scared of, but as we look at it up front right now, we know the cattle numbers are tight. More shipping cattle from the north to the south, trying to alleviate some of these decreased numbers in Texas. So. It's been interesting at that. I mean, it's surprised that we can make them 2,000 pounds. We can make these steers weigh this much and still not overrun the market. I think it's just a true testament to how tight we really are. So that's what keeps coming back to be king. Every time we have a break in these markets, cash just bails us right out. Cash feeders have been the leaders, and those prices stay strong. There's a lot of optimism out there. So I think that's what we do really like about it. And we've had this Mexican border shut for over a year now. And that's kind of entering back into the market a little bit here. And just the thought that that's really negative if it opens. But what's happened since that's been an entire year, they've figured out a way to actually just slaughter those cattle in Mexico. They already have the labor. They don't have near the hoops to jump over that we do in the United States. They can just run 24/7, have three shifts, and keep on moving. So I kind of feel like they've fixed this problem on their own down there. So maybe they're not even so quick to push to reopen this border. So that's kind of an interesting take that we're having right now is okay, maybe we're just going to be getting beef from Mexico rather than the actual cattle themselves. So that's been entering the market. The other thing is Greeley, Colorado. The union voted 97% to do a strike, or was it 98? Anyway, they voted to do a strike. They did not walk off on the spot, but that's kind of re-entering back into the market that's planned. But as we sit back and look at this, we're not overrun by numbers. There's plenty of hook space that we're shifting all around. If it's just down for a few days, I don't even think it's a blip on the market. So I think we're fighting off some of that negative news and cash comes out. We get a little 245 in the south again, and we're starting to feel pretty good. And your seasonal cash highs for the year are, second, third week of March. So there's still some time yet to have some pretty good cash markets here yet.
Do you worry about something in the feeder like a black swan event, Scott?
Yeah, in the cattle industry, I think we're always worried about a black swan event. That's the unfortunate part. I mean, that's what we get used to seeing, and we always have to shift real fast. And that we're set up to where a black swan would be something we don't want right now. And some of the reasons I would say would be everybody was hedged last year and paid a lot of margin calls all the way up because it was such a high price. You had so much risk you had to be hedged. And now you have feeder cattle bought that we're starting to see a few negative closeouts come across the table. So that is actually happening. Wondering if that doesn't start to dampen these feeder calves prices, which it hasn't much yet. But you have a whole bunch of cattle on feed in the industry that do not have any hedges on right now. And if some sort of black swan happens and this thing tips over, we're not sitting in a good spot. So a little bit nervous about that fear, that anxiety could take over if something happens. So we'll just keep praying, Caesar, that does not happen.
Of course, wait and see. We can do. The corn market, the corn market says cheap for right now with feed. How can we meet some of the call to the corn markets for right now?
Yeah, and the cheap feed has been something we're just almost used to here. It's been a long period of time, and it's made our cost of gains, quite a bit cheaper, and that's why we're making cattle as big as we are, really. 2,000 pounds, I had mentioned that. I mean, that's not something that's just unheard of anymore. It does happen. And when you're getting 245 or 240 on the other end, you're okay with losing a little bit of efficiency on these cattle to feed them some extra days. But with a 2.1 billion bushel ending stock on corn, for me, that's a big hurdle for the corn market anyway. So I don't see that that's something the corn looks like it wants to pop out of the top side. It needs a lot of extra demand if we're going to start chewing through all of this corn. And as we enter into a new season, as you start looking at all of the insurance prices or all your different risk levels with insurance, it's leaning us towards planting corn as the better deal with the insurance program that's laid out. And if we start to plant a bunch of corn acres again, it could keep us with that big ending stock number for a while. So my thought is corn just doesn't have the steam to try to break out of the top side. So as far as feed needs, it's been kind of a hand to mouth kind of market for me already. Um, and I'm still that way. I don't have anything that's really changing my tune just yet. We get some big export numbers here or there. That's good. It needs it, but it's going to have to be a lot more just to eat through all the corn that we have. And the fringe acres just really picked up, the extra bushels of corn, I guess, because we saw varying yields across the main corn belt. But when you look at all the fringe acres around, they more than made up for it. So genetics, everything that we can do to raise corn is just so impressive. And weather scares just aren't as prevalent. So I'm feeling like corn stuck in the mud here, and that's just how I'm going to trade it.
What do you recommend for your producers in the corn markets?
So for me, the options in the corn markets are pretty cheap, in my opinion, which just means that there's low volatility expected, not much movement. But if you're looking out at that next December corn crop, options are pretty cheap out there. A guy can look to do any kind of protection. And if it's saying, hey, I want to sell X amount of bushels, or I want to buy some calls, have some courage calls above the market so I can make some sales. Yeah, all of those plans are on the table just because options are so cheap and you're not having to risk a lot. So either side you're trying to trade it, absolutely it's there. I'm going to be quicker to try to make some sales that are going to make me some money. And if you want to have some courage calls on top, I think that's okay because they are so low cost. So when you're looking at a 460 next new crop corn. I think we've got, a month and a half here till we get to the acreage reports. So you can lay something in place here, pretty easily during this next month and a half just to kind of get you started here.
Did you talk to some ranchers in Nashville about this cattle markets? Some is saying that, well, this is pretty great for right now, but what's concerns about demand for beef and consumer budget with the economy in general?
And I think that the economy in general, and the demand, I mean, that's always going to be in the forefront. But luckily, we've had, a stock market that's been super impressive, and that's felt good. I think the demand is great, and time they, start to talk about beef being too high, I just think that's bogus. I can't wrap my head around it. The costs of everything else are going up. Our inputs are going up, and to single out beef that it's being too high, I think that's just one fear that we have, that our government has not dropped that comment yet. And we feel like, hey, demand is great. People really want beef, and we're in a tight supply. Reason being that not enough money was trickling down that industry in the first place. So we needed this incentive to rebuild the cow herd. I think the market will fix itself there. I mean, if we're profitable for a couple of years, yeah, I'm able to start to expand. I mean, we love what we do in the beef industry. We're crazy that we're still in it after some of the poor years that we had, but we love it. That's who we are. And so I think the market will fix itself. We will eventually get more numbers around us. So hopefully we don't have any outside hiccups that they're trying to fix the demand, or government trying to come in and do much, because our demand is great. Cow-calf producers feeling in really good shape. We'll meet those needs. If this production here, if this demand keeps staying this good, our production will start to pick up if there's some money for us to be had in it. So I think I'm feeling okay about it. I just the demand being good, I just hope that we don't have some sort of government intervention to try to change the way that things are.
What is your thoughts on the stock markets for the future and job markets quad?
Yeah, they're hovering around this 50,000 on the Dow, and that likes to make some headlines. But I feel like our economy's rolling pretty good, and there's promises that it's going to get better, whether you want to stand on those or not. But they're in the headlines because things are pretty good, and I think that is a great sign for us. I don't see any major reasons for an economic jerk. We've kind of gotten through a lot of the trade war kind of stuff early in President Trump's campaign, or presidency here, but it does feel like some of that is re-entering back into the mix. And I suppose that's one thing that we don't want to have happen. That could, disrupt the apple cart just for a little bit, but
Hmm?
feeling like we're on pretty firm ground here.
Finally, what is your position on the fundamentals on the cattle markets for this year?
I feel like the front months of this year look good to me. I think we get into the spring. We still have some good time left. I'm liking the March and April markets. I think they're going to be good. It usually leaks into June, but it is the latter half of the year that I start to get a little bit more nervous, as we're going to ramp up the imports. And if that packer would ever start to gain a little bit of leverage, that's when it's going to get dicey. I mean, we're not used to having the leverage as a producer for this long of a period of time, and they've been learning how to manage it. And the band-aids that they're using to kind of get through till we get more numbers, we're going to eventually get more numbers, and that's when it's going to start to turn. So I look at some of these deferred markets, and uh, I'm not fully confident that we'll be at those high prices when we get there. And that's just my opinion. We'll see what shakes. I would love to be wrong on that, but that's how I'm going to play it.
Thanks, Scott. I am glad that you enjoyed our conversation for today.
Yep, you bet. Thanks for having me, Caesar.
This is Scott Varkeilk from koomia, evlk, rating one back roads of Illinois.